So this image, which looks like a peacock hit a windscreen, is Bill Cheswick's map of the internet. He maps the various networks that make up the internet and color codes them. And what the internet introduces into the media environment for the first time is a medium that is natively good at supporting group communication. Not just me broadcast to you, and not just you talk to one other person, but really a group that can gather together and have a conversation for itself. So that's one of the big changes, right? We now have a medium that's natively good at many to many. If that was all, that would be a big deal, but it might not yet be a revolution. There's a second big change going on at the same time, however. Consider the difference between a television and a telephone. When you buy a television, the number of consumers of television goes up by 1, but the number of producers of television doesn't budge. Right? The number of producers stays exactly the same. Phones don't work like that. You don't go down to buy a phone and have somebody in the store ask you, do you just want to listen on this phone, or do you want to talk too? Right? You always buy a phone to talk and listen at the same time. It's part of how phones work. For the first time in history, we have a mass medium whose device, the computer, the mobile phone, assumes that everybody wants to consume content and that everybody wants to produce content. Right? It is the scale of television and the logic of the telephone, married for the first time, put together for the first time. So now, every time someone buys a computer or a sufficiently capable mobile phone, the number of consumers of digital media goes up by 1. And the number of producers of digital media also goes up by 1. That's the effect that's leading to the great expanse in expressive capability. Every time someone plugs into the world of television, the amount of content does not change at all. Every time someone plugs into a digital network, on the other hand, the number of creators increases with the number of consumers. And the third change, right, in addition to a many-to-many pattern and symmetrical production and consumption, the third change is this, which is all other media is going digital. And as everything gets digitized, as everything from movies to phone calls gets digitized, the internet becomes the logical mode of carriage for all of it. Which means that you can jump from one medium to the next without ever having to change technologies. It's like having a phone that can turn into a radio broadcast station if you press the right buttons. So being able to have small conversations is not new. Being able to have large broadcasts is not new. What is new is being able to go from one to the other, all in the same environment, all at the same time. With those three characteristics, and that's one of the things I think that makes this a revolution, which is the difference between the previous media landscape and this media landscape is so enormous. With those three characteristics in place, what we start to see isn't just new media producers coming in and competing with existing media producers, although we see that. We also see people producing media for reasons that they never used to produce media. Back when public media was expensive media, you had a small group of professionals creating everything, whether it was movies or television shows or books or magazines. But when the cost of something falls enough, you actually open up the media environment to people who have different motivations than the professionals have. Which is to say, amateur media producers are not just little bitty, sloppy professionals. They're doing a different kind of thing. So here's an example of that. Here somewhere is an example of that. So this is the heading of a website, a weblog called Gnarly Kitty. And Alice Archirapongse, the woman who runs this, at the time of this story, this is from back in 2006, was a fashion student. in Bangkok. And Gnarly Kitty was her blog, and she would blog about the kinds of things one would blog about if you were a fashion student in Bangkok. So here's one of her posts. This post reads in full. The title of the post is Gone Fishing. And the post reads in full, "No, for real, these last few days, my fingers have been glued to my iPhone, thumbing my way through Flick Fishing." Flick Fishing being an iPhone app for pretending you're fishing when you're really not. So why would anybody post that? Why would you bother to put that up? And the answer is, she's not talking to us. She's talking to her friends. Right? Any day of the week, you could go down to the mall, you could find a group of teenagers hanging out, and they'd be saying things to each other at least this banal. But in that situation, it's clear that you're the weird one. Because what are you doing hanging around listening to the teenagers? We have, for the first time, media that's in public, but not for the public. Which is to say, Chirapongse is broadcasting things to her friends, because they're the people who will care about what she's doing. She's just doing it in a medium that we can all happen to get access to. In the 20th century, and really from the 1500s, so for half a millennium, the logic of the media environment has been, why? Why publish this? Right? Why take on the expense of printing this book? Why take on the expense of making this movie, making this television show, whatever? Because media was always very expensive and very difficult and very hard to do. And now it's not any of those things. And one of the great disorientations of stuff like Chirapongse posted in this story is that the logic of the media environment now is, why not? Why not post it? If even 3 people in the world will like this, why not put it out there? Right? We're not used to seeing things that are in public but not for the public, but we better get used to it, because that is the bulk of what's being produced. There's people talking to each other and not really caring who listens in, but also not working to make us happy, because we're not her intended audience. So a lot of people seeing this effect have said, oh, I get it. All these amateurs, they're making stuff that's, it's self-amusement, but it doesn't really matter. Right? This kind of media doesn't really matter. These kind of producers don't really matter. It's not that simple, and here's why. One day, Chirapongse wakes up, and there's been a coup in Thailand. And the Thai military goes to the various heads of the Thai media environment, the Thai famously polite people. The military says, please don't report anything about the coup. So no, here goes the music on the radio, nobody's saying anything, nobody knows what's going on, all anybody knows is that there's a coup in Thailand. But the Thai military has not really figured out about the blogosphere yet. So although the media's shut down, the traditional media shut down, the blogs are not. And Chirapongse grabs her camera phone, and she's one of the first people to take pictures of tanks in front of Government House in Bangkok. She puts them up on her blog. She starts to get comments, people come in, this is what I'm seeing, this is what you're seeing. She gets picked up and translated by Global Voices, which is the website, Ethan Zuckerman and Rebecca McKinnon's website for translating posts in the global blogosphere. And all of a sudden the whole world is pouring in. Anybody who wants to know about the Thai coup is now going to Kitty Chirapongse. Right? And she's taking things in her comments, and she's telling people what she knows, and other people are telling what they know. And she suddenly got the attention of this huge audience. She hasn't turned into a journalist, but she has committed an act of journalism, which is to say, in her normal day, she's suddenly done something of global significance. So the coup, right, that particular coup, drags on for a while. It becomes kind of the new normal. Life doesn't change much, except that there's all the kind of political wrangling going on. And so one day, Chirapongse posts this. It's about her Hello Kitty phone, or rather, a phone she got that she didn't like. It was in that kind of mannish black color. She said, that's not the phone I want. She gets out her copy of Photoshop. This is the phone I want. I wish it was pink. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little Hello Kitty up there. on the phone.